According to the American Heart Association, 44% of women aged 20 and older are living with some form of heart disease. For one Huntsville woman, 2023 marks 15 years of her beating the odds.
Because there was no heart disease in my family, I didn't pick up on all the symptoms at first. I just thought I was exhausted. I just thought that something else was wrong. I wasn't on any medication. The only thing I had ever taken in my life was a vitamin.
Dr. Fredonia Williams chalked up her extreme exhaustion to her role as a high school principal.
As women, we move on when we don't feel good.
But that wasn't it. Doctors diagnosed her with bradycardia, a heart rate that's too slow, and they put in a pacemaker. A few months later, while on a trip with her husband, she knew something wasn't right.
I couldn't get off the plane. I was absolutely dead tired, which was completely different from what I'd felt previously. And when we got back to Huntsville, I talked to my cardiologist, and he did the catheterization and discovered that I had a mitral valve leak.
Surgery was needed.
I was scheduled for the surgery that spring, but I wanted to put it off because this was my last year as a principal of the local high school, and I wanted to be there for graduation.
So she did.
I retired in June of 2008, and 10 days later, I was in the hospital with open heart surgery.
During the procedure, doctors found more.
When they did the surgery, they discovered something that looked like sand particles in the mitral valve lining, and they thought it might be what was called cardiac sarcoidosis, which we'd never heard of, or it could be giant cell myocarditis, which we had never heard of. And so I was in the intensive care while they made the decision on exactly what was wrong with me, and they sent the slides to UAB for further diagnosis.
The hits kept coming. She went into sudden cardiac arrest from a blood clot 3 days after surgery. Dr. Williams spent the next 4 weeks in the hospital, 3 of them in ICU.
It was just devastating because to me, heart failure meant that it was a failure. It wasn't, I just couldn't survive.
Her recovery sidelined her for the next year and a half.
There were times I was angry. There were times I was frightened. And I just had to find something. You know, I'd found the physical part to work with the rehab and the walking, but I hadn't found that emotional connection.
Now, Dr. Williams credits a specific group for giving her hope and helping her during her period of uncertainty. We'll share that part of our story coming up next in our next half hour. Until then, we want to remind you the phone bank is open right now. Here are our lovely volunteers, including Dr. Williams herself, taking your heart questions. We have volunteers with the American Heart Association. We've got cardiac rehab and, of course, Mended Hearts here, all ready to answer your phone calls. 256-533-8609 is the number to call to get your heart questions answered. We'll be here until 5:30.